So, continuing with my series of presenting from the great world, How the Great Religions Began by Joseph Gaer. I did not start off how one would expect a person to start off with these things, and that would be starting from the beginning. But ladies, well, I'll mention what's on the cover. A book for everyone, young or old, who wants to learn about the spiritual life of humanity and the founders of man's faith throughout the ages, reverently told, fascinating biographies of Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tse, and all who have led mankind to the heights of religious experience. Well, that's overshooting it. But as far as what was available in the 50s, in, a easy to find thing in Christian country in particular, what do 2.5 billion people believe? Which are the great living religions? How do they differ from one another? How are they alike? And how did that idea of God first occur to man? Which great religion does not admit the existence of a creator? Here is the enlightening story of the world's religions, told simply, instructively, and reverently, told through the life stories of the world's spiritual leaders. Now, since the 1800s, there was sort of this dispensationalist armchair archaeology sort of way of thinking of there's a progress towards what type of Christianity? Oh, yes, the most advanced was Protestant, or a particular type of Protestant, or maybe it was Orthodox, or Catholic, or something before that, or something on the side of one of those. It doesn't quite work that way. It's like, well, monotheism, well, it's not advanced enough because we need in Christianity. It's like, okay, whatever, that's what they believe. Which great religion does not admit the existence of a creator? Well, I hate to break it to you, Buddhism isn't like that. Buddhism often, if they don't worship, they're considering, there's these, it often gets, if it's turned into an atheist thing, then it gets grafted on to different paths. It's like in China, you could be a Buddhist, a Confucius, a Taoist, a little of each. W.M. Burks, professor of comparative religion in McGill University, says that with the peoples of the world thrown increasingly together, it becomes ever more necessary and urgent that men of different cultures and civilizations should not only know but understand each other. For that understanding, some awareness and appreciation of different values and patterns is imperative. The New American Library, bringing good books to a mass audience at a low price, is certainly to be congratulated for making its striking contribution also in this field. To include a work on comparative religion among its first titles in the new and admirable Signet Key series is imaginative and significant. And Wilford C. Smith, the W.M. Burks professor. Yeah, there's some confusing titles. The Woodruff, some university has confusing titles for professors. The Light of Eternal Beacons. Religion began with a seed. Some do not develop at all, some die young, and some grow into towering heights with many flourishing branches. But all religions are related to each other. Well, as I have said in comments, a comment on the channel, some places elsewhere, I believe there's only one world religion. There never was any other. It's been inflected through time and space and the various psychologies of the people. Because, of course, sometimes one thing is right for one person or a group of people, but it's not the best way for others. But largely the reason why we believe in different religions is because there's been deviations. Some of it has been unintentional losing of portions, translations losing things. But a lot of it's been intentional. People wanted to become fanatics, a bit ethnocentric, various other ways, perhaps. These are the inspiring stories of men who founded the world's religions, some of which are so old that we do not really know how they began. Well, pretty much every one except a particular one. The historical founding is not with the so-called prophet or prophets that were said to be the founders. Here in this invaluable, always timely book is a perceptive and colorful explanation of the many faiths by which the far-flung world of 1954 lives, and the deities to which it prays. In these beautiful stories of Buddha and Jesus, Zoroaster and Muhammad, Prince Mahavira, Martin Luther, and many others, is the whole sweeping panorama of man's endless search for the meaning of his life. This is an exciting, different adventure into history, underscoring the basic principles of brotherhood and amity among nations. Your key to man's perpetual quest for the spiritual. Mr. Gaer has done an almost impossible job with much success. And that's what Ladies' Home Journal has to say. And this book is a reprint of the original hardcover edition published by Dodd, Mead, and Company. And I am not... Oh, the wood engravings that are featured in this are by Frank W. Pierce. And in the beginning, as far back in human history as we can go, we find men eager to set the date of the world's creation. The very first account we read in practically every religious literature is a description and an explanation of how the world was made and when man was appointed general supervisor of the earth, of this earth of ours. Now, it's important to say the difference between man-made cosmologies and those that were actually revealed, whether by God or by something else. According to some of these writings, the world we live in was created exactly 5,696 years ago. So that would be 5,700 and 60 years ago, dating back from September 1935. Now, this is sort of a Judeo-Christian way of thinking. The actual longest running calendar is the Yazidi calendar. Others are not quite so specific, but claim that the world was really created much later than that. Whereas in India, there are people who believe that the first of their religious leaders, the Lord Adinath, appeared on earth 100 trillion palyas ago. A palya, they tell us, is exactly the length of time it would take a little bird to empty a well 1 mile square full of tiny hairs. If it carried away one hair every 100 years, that's how long a palya is. and their lord Adanath came to India so that these people believe. $100 trillion palyas ago. So there's things about the numbers in some of these mythologies that actually say something. And this could have been intentional, that it was clear at one point, but then it wasn't clear. Now imagine how old these people think the world is. But long before people attempted to decipher the blurred date of creation, they were interested in a great many other questions. In fact, it would seem that primitive man was very queer that way. And of course, that means something different nowadays. Like the rest of the creatures of the earth, he ate and drank and slept. Like all the rest, he wished it were hot when it was cold, and wished it were cold when it was hot. He was also very lazy, but unlike any other creature on earth, he asked questions. Why was among the first words he learned to use, and he used it constantly. From morning till night, he asked questions. Why does the sun shine in the daytime and not the night? Where does the sun go after nightfall? Why does the sickle moon grow fat and round from night to night? Where is the wind when it does not blow? Why does it always thunder after lightning? And who made all the things in the world? Now, there's a difference between a true creator, a creator of all, and a demiurge that does no creation and only fashions, or only creates via what's already been created. These are just a few of the 1,000 questions man of long ago asked. Not only did he ask questions, but he even tried to answer them. Now asking questions is one thing, answering them is quite another. And one of the more universal religious values is, if you don't know, keep your mouth shut. Anyone can ask questions. Anyone can ask, why is the sky blue? Why has the cat a tail? Why is the grass green? But not everyone can answer these questions correctly. As an asker of questions, the man of long, long ago was very, very good. But as an answer of questions, he was not so very exact. Now, a lot of this was, the priest making up answers to, or you must know everything as the priest. And I'm going to share something about a particular group when I'm done with this. But as an answer of questions, he was not so very exact. Like most people to this day, the man of 1,000 years ago used his imagination. If he did not know the answer to any question, he imagined what the answer might be, and then he said that was really the answer. So would say the man of long, long ago was a great storyteller. But what does the sun rise each morning, and why does the sun rise and set each morning? Why does the sun rise each morning and set each night? The man of long ago asked. That is easy to explain, readily answered his neighbor, the storyteller. That sun up there in the skies is a wheel of fire on which the sun spirit takes a ride each day across the skies to see the world. At night, the sun spirit puts the wheel of fire away in the hall of darkness and goes to bed. The next morning, he takes it out again to take another ride across the skies. But the sun spirit should feel lazy one day or angry, he would not take his ride, and the sun would not shine, of course. And if you look at some of the stuff the Bible's claimed, it becomes apparent that there's earlier stuff that's better in some of the categories, and some of the ridiculousness grew over time. Once these Quran commentaries from over 1,000 years ago that aren't supported by anything that there's a claim that Muhammad received it as revelation, or a claim that he was inspired to say it. But people wanted to fill in the blanks. People wanted to, it's not proven wrong, but let's make the story grander. And there's people who did that. And you'll see in some of these commentaries, there's no sources for where these people are saying these things. People are just saying stuff. And they're not, much less a lineage or anything specific. They're just saying, well, this must be this. Next morning it takes out again to take another ride across the sky, but the sun spirit should feel lazy one day or angry, he would not take his ride, or the sun would not shine, of course. If the sun did not shine, how would we be able to go hunting for our food? I don't know, the storyteller shrugged his shoulders. But we can keep the sun spirit from being lazy and angry. How? The man of long ago asked. Easy. When the sun comes up, early in the morning, we can go to the mountaintop, so as to be quite close to the sun, and then sing to the sun spirit and praise him for not being lazy. That will flatter him, and he won't be lazy. And sun worship may not have been the first thing, but worship of the stars and stuff, yeah, some of that came first. And exaggeration in caves of women. No human woman could do that. Must be a goddess, right? That might have came first. Or some exaggeration of animal features to the point where they did something like that. That may have come before the stellar worship. Astronomical observation became worship of the astronomy, but not all astrology is like that. We'll have to do that, said the man of long ago, a little sadly. He did not like the idea of getting up when it was still chilly to climb to the top of a mountain to flatter the sun spirit. But he repeated, we'll have to do that. See, when people make up stuff, they burden themselves just to be a leader of others, We'll have to do that. And they did. But if the sun had a spirit that had to be flattered and praised, surely the moon must also have a spirit that rode out every night. As they worshipped the moon spirit, they considered the twinkling stars. The stars, too, were up there in the skies, where the great spirits lived. They must be the homes of other, if lesser, spirits. And the man of long ago praised and flattered the stars, too. And Abraham was told his knowledge. And Abraham went out there and, that star, is that my Lord? It sets. No, that's not it. The moon, is that my Lord? No, it sets. And that's not it. And then the sun, and comes out to point out to them at the sunset that this thing that he asked for the third time, is that my Lord? He's like, once it sets, this love I have is not for those that set. And so he taught them in that way. Slowly the spirits to be praised and flattered grew in number. There was the angry spirit of the thunder, and the busy spirit of the wind, and the weeping spirit of the rain, and the gentle spirit of the rivers, and the mysterious spirit of the woods, and the restless spirit of the oceans. All these, and many, many more, the man of long ago praised and worshipped. And there's a lot of spirits of the woods. The worship of all the spirits of nature was the first religion of mankind. It is called nature worship. Again, this is actually proven wrong, that this actually was a later development. The savage philosopher was not the first religionist, as they call him. As time went on, the people became many on earth. The spirits they worship multiplied rapidly. Not only are there spirits of nature, said the storyteller of long, long ago, but there are other spirits. Then he nodded his head knowingly. Other spirits, people asked, a little frightened. They really did not like those spirits very much. They often made them feel uncomfortable, especially when it was dark. Yes, said the storyteller, there are other spirits. How do you know? The people asked. I remember, the storyteller began, and looked far away into the woods. I remember when we were caught in a forest fire. My mother and I and my 2 sisters were out picking berries when we were caught by the fire. It was the most terrible fire you can imagine. It came sweeping up the hill and devoured the forest like a huge bull, with tongues of flame licking up the trees as if they were blades of grass. We looked around and didn't know what to do. Running down would be running into the fire, running up. The fire traveled faster than the wind and would quickly overtake us. So we just dug a hole very quickly and climbed into that and waited. Later, we all came out unhurt, without as much as a scratch or a burn. And who do you think protected us from being burnt by that terrible fire? Who? The people asked. Why, the spirit of our family. The spirit Habakapa did it. The spirit of the sun, we believe, lives on the sun, and the spirit of the moon on the moon. But where does the spirit of your family live? The people asked. Our family spirit, said the storyteller, lives in a frog. Not an ordinary frog, of course, but it is a frog the size of that hill yonder, and it has only one eye. But its head is covered with ears, and out of its forehead grows a golden horn. We saw it that day we were caught in the forest fire. We never saw such a frog. The people shook their heads. No, of course not. Well, it was a djinn, obviously. If this guy's just not making up stuff. Making up conclusions. Most likely. Well, I mean, this is just a technique, perhaps, but it sounds like a lot of the stories that once were. Said the story... No, of course not, said the storyteller calmly. But I'll ask my friend, Nanda Wanda, to make an image of our family spirit, that you may see him. Nanda Wanda made a stone image of a frog, as the storyteller described it, and painted its horn in gold. Sometimes the jinn have a strange sparkliness, not like the Malaika, but it's... and that's why they may like metals. Some of them do. If the storyteller's family has a spirit to protect it, surely we must have one too, the people argued. And they began making images of their family spirits. Before long, there were thousands and thousands of images. Images made of wood, images made of clay, images made of stone, little images, big images, images that looked like wolves, bears, lions, crocodiles, frogs, and fish. Some were half fish and half eagle. Some were half snake and half stag. Some were like cows, ordinary cows, and many looked like no living creature on earth. The people no longer worshiped nature spirits, but worshiped these many images called idols. So the indirect thing, that was actually would have been a step that came next. But the worship of objects likely may have even came for the prior things, because something powerful happened in this place. And, almost all the people of long ago have in some such way passed from the religion called nature worship to the worship of images and idols called idol worship. So what does that have to say about a lot of Christian churches that have graven images that they say this is what Jesus and God and whatnot looks like? And they use them in their... It's not just something that occurs, it's something that, they worship through the image. It's one thing dancing around a statue and not actually praying to it or anything like that, but feeling like you have to look at a cross with a guy hanging from it. These idols, so the people believed, if flattered enough by prayer and sacrifices, had the power to do good to the people who believed in them and to harm their enemies. I personally don't believe in charms and amulets. If you see something in my videos or whatever, or my posts, that people may use that way, that's not what I mean. There's symbolic values. If a man quarreled with his neighbor, he would come and pray to his favorite idol to make his neighbor's cow give bloody milk, or in some other way hurt him. But the neighbors had idols too, and while a man prayed to his own idols to punish and hurt his enemies, his heart was uneasy about what the spirits of his enemies' idols might do to him and his household. To protect themselves against the power of the evil spirits that fought on the side of their enemies, people began to wear little images of their idols around their necks. These are called amulets or talismans. As long as they had those amulets on, so they believed no evil could befall them. With certain amulets in their possession, they believed they could throw spells on people and perform magic. Some people began to believe with certain amulets in their possession, and by calling the right names of certain spirits, they could open the gates of the future and see what was going to happen. With these beliefs spreading among the people, they began spending much of their time in trying to perform magic and plotting to harm their enemies through sorcery and witchcraft. Since every person had some enemies, everybody began to be afraid all the time that his enemies were at that time invoking evil powers to harm him. If a man became ill, he believed his enemies had wished it upon him through witchcraft, and he started to think of ways to avenge himself. And the power that you give other people's power to cast spells and to summon up demons and all that, well, that increases its power over you now, doesn't it? Through witchcraft, and he started thinking ways to avenge himself. Some very wise people thought it all over and realized that at the root of all this evil was idol worship. So they started to preach out against idol worship. Some of these very wise men who preached against the worship of idols and images established new religions. The religions they established changed in time as the people of the world changed. Some of the religions that existed in the past no longer exist today, just as some of the nations that existed in the past no longer exist now. Now, modernizing should be through technology. It should not be through this, oh, well, that was done a long time ago. Little kids, their parents' modern ideas of modesty. You see kids trying to cover up because they feel, I want to cover more. Sometimes it's a comfort, even when it's not particularly hot or something. This is what they instinctively do. They don't like the boom, 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 loud noises. The fireworks scare them. When they get older, they like it. They get used to it. The neighborhood dog doesn't necessarily get used to it, but the kid gets used to all this loudness and the brightness and the immodesty and the not eating right. Yeah, what is this? Oh, I don't want fruit. Ew. No, give me fruit drink. Of the living religions in the world today, some are very old, so old that we really do not know exactly when they began. And some are so young that many people now living can remember when they first started. Now, a true religion isn't something that just people invent to mythologize the science of the time, although personal mythologization and individuation does occur. There are some people who believe that the word religion comes from a word in an ancient language meaning tree, and all religions are, in many ways, like trees. Religio, but we're all slaves to something. So it binds to the community, it binds to what we believe created, it regulates. All these are in term for religion. Like trees, religions began with a seed. Some do not develop at all. Some die young, and some grow into towering heights with many flourishing branches. Some religions are already fully grown, and others are just beginning to sprout. But all religions are related to each other, and the religion of each time would obviously be something that comes with the representation of all the spiritual guidance, the morals and stuff that would lead us to accept the facts, everything that is good and true that will come in that age. But all the religions are related to each other. Very few people realize this one. Of the religions followed in the world today, the oldest as well as one of the greatest, and one that has a very large following, is the religion of the people of India. Many, many religions of the people of India. Anything from pure monotheism to worshipping everything, to thinking that everything is God, including yourself, to, even piles of excrement, and their extremism on the end of vegetarianism, veganism, to eating human flesh and human sacrifices, and there's a variety of stuff. Of the religions followed in the world, the oldest as well as one of the greatest has a very large following. It's the religion of the people of India. Hinduism is really a British concept to simplify things, because there's 70,000. There's a whole lot of religions. We're just calling everything that goes on here Hinduism. What about Buddhism? No. Jainism? Okay, we'll consider that separate. Islam and Christianity, particular forms that developed there or were taken there. Okay, we'll consider that as. And with this religion, and the changes and reforms in this religion, this book begins. And is there an end to this thing? No, the Protestant Reformation is where it all ends in this book that it leads to. Sort of dispensationalist thing, like God's got to lead things one way and then another way another time, a contradictory way, and it's like, yes, certain material culture needs to be addressed, but let's not get carried away. And let's not get carried away with saying, oh, they're all true. Tolerance is one thing. They're all true, and they're all good, everything's good, it's all relative, and what? If an idea becomes popular, you have to believe it, you have to do it, you have to act it out? I say to you, no. And there's more that can be said about the beginning of religion.